Welcome.
You don't look like an Indian podcast.
Why does it sound like you're getting ready for a massage?
It's not a massage. It's like an experience.
You're back to our little Lau and Sohan segments where we are talking about another topic that we probably should have talked about before.
But we should have started the podcast with this subject. Although we did touch on the myths. And it was a really good podcast episode. If you haven't given it a listen, you should go and actually let us know how much we have improved in the subjects that we talk about. Anyway, yes, so this is one of our favorite topics because we're passionate about this movement and the beliefs that, I guess, the foundations of it. But what we're not passionate about is in what has turned into or
how it's been taken out of context, really.
Exactly. And we're here.
Yeah. And become like a hateful thing that people can literally use to be like an insult. Oh, you're such a feminist. When did that become a bad thing?
I don't know, but I don't like
so
it.
Passionate, she's crying.
No, I don't know. I don't like it. And I feel sad that we're using this word as an insult or that are people that just hate listening to it. It's like, why are you like, or like people are like, anyway, I'm not even gonna.
But you are, that's why we're here.
I just disagree with people that are like, I don't like when girls call themselves feminists. I'm like, oh my God.
Let's unpack. Honestly, yeah, because I think where it comes from is the misrepresentation by a lot of, and I do have to acknowledge that it might be brought on by some of the conversations younger girls, especially prevalent on social media, talk about, you know, what is equality without having full knowledge of A, the movement, and B, what it really stands for.
The timeline of the movement even.
Yeah.
Because like if they had an understanding of where it stemmed or like where it came from,
Yeah.
they would be like, actually, it's
and the
not bad.
actual depth of it, like the actual fundamentals. It's not just I just want, you know, his money is his money and my money is mine.
Or
no,
like,
his money is my money and my money is mine. You know, like stupid shit like that.
Or like, I'm not gonna shave my legs, and that's like,
Or we should all have rights to have an OnlyFans account. Like that is not what rights is. That's not what the movement was about. That's not why women took to the streets to ask for rights to vote. Like it's not the same thing.
Exactly. Also, I have allergies, and I think it's important to mention this because I'm gonna be congested in this podcast episode. Thank you for just, you know, welcoming my congestion. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be like blowing my nose in the background when you speak, and it's not gonna sound nice. So this movement started around 1850 and 1940, so a century of dialogue and, I guess, rebellious behavior from females. But the rebellious behavior wasn't like, as Sohan mentioned before, I want to open an OnlyFans account. Our issues back in the day were a little bit like heavier. So we didn't actually have access to education. And I'm not saying that, no comment, right? I'm not dismissing anyone's feelings or dismissing anything, but I'm saying we didn't have access to education. And the problem with that is, as we touched on our last one-on-one episode, it was just like dismissing someone's potential to, I don't know, to nothing, to,
Chicken,
you know, to a chicken in the house, like someone said. I love that. So yeah, we didn't have access to education. We didn't, we couldn't vote or we couldn't be chosen as politicians. And it was,
that was a long way away. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that we couldn't do these things meant that we couldn't actually choose people that were governing the countries that we lived in, and we couldn't choose the people that were making policies and all of that.
Yeah, literally. And if you look even further back, if you look at the witch trials, you know, the Salem witch trials. If you go, and that's like 1600s, right? But if you look back, a lot of the women were just free thinkers and being able to think in that capacity for a woman was so unheard of and so looked down upon that they literally would rather call them a witch and burn them at the stake
or
than look at
throw
them.
stones at them.
Yeah, but it was so bad. I was listening to a talk recently, I forget where, that they were saying literally townships were eradicated of all but maybe 2 or 3, 4 women. Like, that's the amount. Like, women were just wiped out in so many towns.
And I can't stop to think that this was just coming from a place of fear from the opposite gender. Like, seriously, it was like, if women have access to all of this, like education and all of these resources, I guess, power is no longer on our hands, and that was just scary for them. That's my theory behind it.
And yeah, like, there's so much more that we will unpack about that and why that bothers us so much. But it's a heavy thing to think about. Like, but yeah, basically starting out, you know, wanting education and paid work. I think somewhere along the line you look back and you have to take a couple of steps back and see that, okay, even if you're getting educated, if you're not choosing who, like Lauda was saying, who's making the policies or who's, you know, choosing your rights, you're not actually progressing. So I think personally, that's what made the movement transform into, I think, what they call the suffragists. Yeah, so like even starting asking for voting rights, I think it was New Zealand that was the first country to actually recognize women as an equal citizen in just the capacity to be able to vote. Yeah, and shortly after that, that was late 1800s, and then by 1920, other countries had followed, like Australia, Finland, and some other ones that I...
Okay, after that, through the 60s and the 80s, women actually raised their voice about reproductive rights.
Yeah.
Which is like, we are so lucky. No lucky. We're so fortunate that these people just raise the voice about this matter, because imagine not having reproductive rights.
Yeah, and then you have like I guess important things like Wade versus Roe that recently got overturned, so it's like almost like it didn't happen all over again. But essentially,
yeah,
those
America's still like,
those really important decisions that were made through that time, allowing you know, women to have a say in
their sexuality and like whether they wanted to have a family or not, or things beyond that, like for example, people like, that were victims of like sexual assault, like have a saying on whether they wanted to, you know,
whether they were going to live
experience
with that child. Oh,
yeah,
absolutely sad.
We also went through fighting for workplace equality, and we still are.
Honestly, yeah.
In certain industries more than others, and obviously like we won't compare to what it used to be, and against domestic violence. And this is truly devastating, because what it used to be before, oh Jesus, like even divorcing the person that was abusing you was not allowed, because society is stigma, but also because it wasn't, and you should just like, you know,
because you have
suck
no
it up,
capacity to do anything else. You're not educated. You don't have any skill set. So what are you going to do? You know, you might as well be with someone who's going to provide for you.
And I like that you mentioned that, because it's actually abuse psychologically, and people were manipulating women.
Psychologically, financially, economically, everything. And it's not even that's a thing of the past.
No, people are still using it these days.
Still there.
It's so
it's there
sad.
here, it's there in different countries, it's there globally, and that's why I think it's important to get back to the grassroots of why this movement is happening, even to this day and age.
Yes, and it's so important, and we can stress this enough. Like, we need to have an understanding of what the actual movement stands for and not take it out of proportion. Anyway, what we're seeing today, which is like the third wave, is actually the movement is standing up for other minorities.
But essentially standing up for marginalized communities, women of color, different ethnicities. It's become an umbrella term just for having equal human rights.
It's like being an activist.
Essentially. But in saying that, it's not to say that everyone who identifies as that agrees with everything. So I think because it's such a big umbrella term that encompasses so many different ideologies, you can't say that every feminist agrees with it. Like they're all on the same page. Not true. And whether that's good or bad, we're not even discussing, but we're just flagging that that's the case. And it's diverse, it's dynamic, and it is ongoing. We haven't remotely closed on any of the topics, except for maybe voting, because now we're allowed to vote pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it's good that it's dynamic and flexible, because it allows us to, again, like, continue to come up with best strategies to dismantle systems that no longer benefit society, like the patriarchal system or other like awful systems that there are.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much all we have to say on the history of the topic, to be honest. We're not having, a history lesson. So we thought we'd jump on here, try to get back to the roots of why we think this is such an important topic for us, but even globally, what it really stands for, what we think it stands for, and what it should stay as, I think, to be honest. Because on so many levels these days, like, we hear, like, it's just misconstrued to be this really negative thing that's, like, tearing down family structures and hating on men and, like, treating them as trash.
Yeah, or, like, generalizing negative behavior in some men and making it seem like all men are the same. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true. There's women that are not, ideal partners, and
Yeah, 100%.
it doesn't mean that every woman on planet Earth is the same.
Definitely no.
Okay, so I have this theory in my head, and I would like to share this thought. Like, for example, religion is another topic that is very controversial, just like feminism. And I know I could never compare with the one and the other, but it's like the beliefs of every religion are really positive. But when men sort of like misinterpret them and puts like the egoic sort of like hat on, is when things go nuts and we have all these problems within societies. And I think that's sort of like the only element that I want to highlight that we have done with the feminism movement is like their beliefs, access to equal opportunities for all, and human rights.
Yeah.
Those were sort of like the foundations. And now we have taken it out of the proportion to the point that we are no longer fighting for equal rights and equal access to opportunities. We can see it on the transgender competitions with in sports.
Yeah.
They should create like a different category for these people to compete, because they are on an advantage and is not longer equal.
Exactly. And unfortunately, you listen to these panels of women who claim to be feminist, and they're asked the question of, do you think trans men, should they compete with women in the like category of women in women's sports? And they'll all just say yes, like without even thinking of the fact that bone density, muscle mass, biologically, we're not the same. And feminism never claimed to say we are the same. There was actually a video where the lady was like, oh, you just have to have hope and belief that you'll be fine. I can't compete with a man sprinting 100 meters if I have belief and faith and hope. Yeah. Like, you can't match that capacity. Who was that MMA thing that we're talking about? What had happened?
Oh, she knocked her in the face and like
fractured her skull, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the simple byproduct of a different center of gravity, center of mass, weight, structure, bone density, completely different. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people take this argument that, oh, if you're asking for equality, you're asking for
sameness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the word. Oh, high five!
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it was us just being really happy that we're on the same page. Sameness. Yeah, just because you're saying we're asking to be equal doesn't mean we're saying we're the same. Women and men, and historically, we've always just accepted that there is a difference. Yeah. Biologically, or maybe nature-wise, there might be a slight difference. However,
men, even if women and men are different, that doesn't mean that they can't be equality.
They can't. Yeah, exactly. They can have the same opportunities.
Oh God, Lau! I keep bumping my phone on the table. Sorry,
which is
guys.
why women's sport was created. It's not that just because you have a different capacity of aerobics and cardiovascular strength that you cannot perform in sport at all. You should be allowed in that capacity to perform. And it's sort of like this really interesting question that Lau was reading just before we were like looking into this topic and while we were doing our research. And it said that ask yourself this question. If you're in a classroom and one child is maybe physically weaker than another, do you think that just because he's weaker, he shouldn't be given the same access to the teacher as the other child?
What do you think, people? And I guess it's important when we're talking about this type of subject that we sort of like define what equality means, right?
Yeah.
And equity. So equity, fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people. Equality means that each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. It's very different because equity recognizes each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities to reach an equal outcome. It doesn't mean that we're saying that men, women are the same, because we aren't.
Yeah.
And we should embrace that.
Weirdly enough, you know, being in the industry that we're in, like, I've been involved in different conversations where, you know, people will ask you then, why aren't women, you know, wanting to be working on oil rigs or working as construction workers, like the real hard stuff that only men can do to help society moving on. Hello, we didn't say we want to be everywhere you are, and we didn't say we are the same. We just said in the things we want to do, let us have the opportunity. It's that simple. It's cerebral equality wherever we choose to be.
It's so funny because today I was sharing about the fact that I'm going to a breakfast on Friday about women in engineering, and there was a guy that was really upset about the fact that there's always like breakfasts or like events for females in the engineering industry, and he was like, why is that men don't have these celebrations?
But you know, the unfortunate reality is whenever these breakfasts happen, the women who are there, they actually talk about how we need men to come to these events. Men to be allies and have these conversations. So if he wants a cute little free breakfast, tell him to turn up.
But the problem, yes, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think men should come to these breakfasts.
They
Men
should be hosting
come,
these things.
yes,
you know?
But these events, another thing that I wanted to highlight, yes, most of these events and movements and panels and all of these fighting, in quotation marks because no one's fighting, actually gets initiated by females. So it's very little the percentage of men that actually get involved into organizing these activities. And I guess even when men get involved, it's really difficult for them to get their peers to support this. Because a lot of people have that mindset of, if I don't get invited to this breakfast, or if men don't get these breakfasts, then it means that we're not actually equal, or like we are creating a gap.
Most men, and I'm going to say most because I can't speak for all of them, but I can definitely say that I don't think most of them have an issue feeling like they belong or seeing representation, like, because it's easy for them to see leaders in this field. It's easy for them to be connected just because, you know, they get along, or, you know, or the fact that people aren't constantly telling them, you know, oh, I'm surprised you work in this field, or, you know, like, oh, what do you do? Are you the PA?
Oh my God, I
over there
just
or something,
remembered.
you know?
Yeah, and he was like, he was like saying how, oh my God, this is so bizarre. The individual was like, so does that mean that men should be having events like this in the nursing industry because it's like female dominated?
Oh, wait, watch out for our next post.
I was like,
Now there's a pay disparity against women in an industry they're saying is female dominated. Men are still paid more in that field.
yeah, but they don't have breakfast, so the individual was really upset.
But that's exactly. It's a lack of complete understanding.
Empathy is a word that I would like to use.
Yes.
There.
To what the minority is going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difference between being nice and being kind, I think. Because the kind thing to do is recognize that, look, I stand for your equality, and this is obviously, again, we're talking about trans men in sport and those sort of inclusivities. Yes, we stand for your right to be whatever it is that I guess you identify as, but, and if you were nice, you'd just be like, oh my God, come join us. And that is detrimental sometimes.
Yes.
To be kind is to recognize that there is an injustice, but still stand and by the injustice.
Fairness.
Yeah, the injustice that it would be to women who have fought really hard to compete in a sport and not let it be dominated again by men who will literally, biological men who will be in that field and will literally whoop their ass.
Yeah.
For a better word.
Yeah. Because you have to recognize what's right and wrong. And unfortunately, I liked that you talked about labels, because this really does happen a lot, that because the conversation is about rights for both men and women. So women are saying that, even men should be allowed to, voice their emotions.
Yes.
And be allowed to feel a certain thing. And unfortunately, the people that like labels misconstrue that and have this, I don't know what sort of fear mongering is going around, but you hear it a lot where they're destroying the emotional resilience of humans by saying, oh, you're allowed to feel your feelings and that means people are not going to be strong.
No,
I would really
I think it's just an understanding of polarity in this instance. Like, for example, and I guess what I mean is, you are allowed to have moments of weakness when you're a strong person, regardless of the gender.
Yeah.
And that's the polarity of life. So if you're happy, you therefore are going to be sad. Yeah. If you are super strong and resilient, that also means that you'll be like crying and having moments of weakness.
When strong become like this flag for, oh, I don't feel anything weak. Sorry, no. Courage is actually being able to face your fear in spite of that fear. The fear exists.
Yeah.
And when we say you're allowed to feel your feelings, it doesn't mean feel them indefinitely. It just means don't bottle it up so that you become like this weird, emotionally unavailable prick who doesn't know how to distinguish
or resent everyone else that's around you.
Exactly.
And become a bitter fucking tree. Sorry.
Unfortunately, to the point where some people,
commit suicide.
Yes. And it's so sad. But yeah, I think allowing someone the opportunity to understand that emotions are a spectrum and they're allowed to feel in any capacity doesn't mean that you get to wallow and stay like that. Emotional resilience still needs to be cultivated.
And I genuinely feel like we should have a man tell us why is that. Okay, no, I don't feel like we should have a man. So I think it's really interesting because when we're talking about emotions and all of these, somehow by allowing or by giving everyone the right, or not the right, but when we encourage everyone to feel emotions and just take them for what they are, like emotions, temporary ones, not forever, as you said, why is that our identity of being a male or being a female is threatened or it gets questioned?
Yeah.
Like, what roles or what stereotypes have you been cultivating or promoting? Because if by being a male and not having any, normal human feelings or emotions, that makes you a man, then you're limiting yourself to so much. Like, if you start allowing yourself to feel these things, then yes, your identity gets questioned, but why?
Yeah, like it's got absolutely nothing to do with capacity or what you will achieve, essentially, or whether or not you can provide, or whether or not you are a fully functional member of society. To be honest, I don't think it's not a dichotomy. Those things coexist. Yeah. And yes, every strong person has a down day, but it's like literally I don't know, is it a Tao saying? I don't know, but you fall, maybe a Japanese saying, you fall down 6 times, you get up 7.
Yeah.
But falling down does happen, and you can't just say, I don't fall. Falling doesn't happen to me. Gravity exists.
And it's interesting because we do... Gravity exists. Love that. It's an interesting one because we allowed ourselves to make so many mistakes when we're learning different skills like, I don't know, a language, dancing, playing a guitar, writing a report. But we don't allow ourselves to fall in our everyday routine or like life. I think it's important to be a little bit, I don't know, like cut some slack, zoom out and be like, I'm doing well. And this is probably a mental memo.
Yeah. And I think if I like step back and again go to how the movement is classified today, I think a lot of people think it's just a bunch of angry women who just want to not have
hairy
children.
armpits.
Yeah, probably not have, you know, a traditional family or not have any, you know, anything to do with a household and just be free and probably have sex until they die. I don't know. But that's such a wrong image. That's
Stereotype.
that's just being pushed out, which is so untrue because some of the biggest advocates I know are people with children, want to be in a happy family and are perfectly, you know, in line with life in society, but can still want women to not be treated
Poorly.
Exactly.
And I guess the question for the listeners out there is like, what goes through your mind when you hear like domestic violence stories? Like, nobody deserves to be humiliated, abused physically, emotionally, psychologically, financially. No one deserves that. No one deserves manipulation, regardless of the gender, regardless if you identify as an object or not. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter.
And what do you think? Personally, the question I get, I constantly come back to is, what do you actually view a family or a household to be if you think the whole structure is going to be, or some sort of power is taken from you if your partner is literally just asking to be treated like a human being or just being treated like an equal? Like, what kind of power were you hoping to have that is stripped away from you so fully if equalities come into the picture? Like,
yeah, like what did you have to lose?
Yeah, but what was the image that you were thinking was going to be upheld? Because I think, personally, for me, it's that if you are in a partnership,
it's a team.
Yeah, but anyone who has more knowledge on a particular topic, say the guy knew finance is better, I would be perfectly happy to acknowledge I don't really know. Teach me, and until you teach me, you can make decisions. It's perfectly fine. Or I will educate myself. You don't have to teach me. Sorry, but like whoever knows more, or if I knew more about holiday planning or something, like, you know, or like where we're going to shift or what's better, like market wise for houses, the person who knows more can make a decision. It's perfectly fine. It's not like
ego.
You're not running a little government here where if you don't have a leader, it's going to be anarchy.
Which is, it's interesting that you have touched the subject, because when we talk about like startups and, you know, like launching your own business, a lot of like these really successful people sort of like go through how you should hire people for the skills that you don't like or you don't know. Like like if you have great leadership skills, then do that. But if you don't like mathematics or if you don't like software development, then why would you do that? Instead, hire someone that is more proficient at those. So why don't we, I mean, obviously there's like so many layers of this, but we should approach or use the same logic in relationships, in households and everything. Like, we shouldn't feel threatened by the other person having those skills. In fact, it would be a better team if we have diversity.
Yeah. And for anyone saying, why are we still having these conversations? I just feel like we're so privileged to be in a country like Australia or, you know, wherever to be. We're both in Australia, so just Australia. But unfortunately, even here, there's a high level of domestic violence. But then even leaving that aside, you look globally, and I think it's just a matter of perspective to understand that these things are still a huge...
they happen.
Exactly.
And
a huge
because
reality.
you like literally don't see them, that doesn't mean they don't exist.
Exactly. We're not living in an ideal world where everyone is treated so nicely and all men and women are amazingly loving in relationships and things are hunky-dory. The reality of life is very different for so many people. So many people. I was watching a clip from this documentary, and it's so sad. I don't even know if I should mention it. But I think it was in Pakistan. And there was a doctor talking to different women who had been through domestic abuse, particularly acid attacks. So there was a husband who threw acid on his wife's face, and his mom and his sister put kerosene on her and burnt her.
Oh my God.
Wait, she managed to survive that, but she did try to go out and be on her own, but she couldn't provide for her children because she had no basic education, no skill set. Lau, she had to go back and live with the husband in the end.
That's so bizarre. And that's why access to education and access to just be able to be part of policy making was and is still so important. Because if you, and this is just generally speaking, education and knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm
financial
not talking about
freedom,
access to information
small amount
because
of financial freedom
a
gives
lot
you
of
the chance to not have to ask someone for basic needs.
yeah, because there's like a power play already when there's like not financial freedom because someone is like, I have money, you don't. What are you gonna do? Starve yourself for a week or what? You know, they can use that
when
against
I make
you.
the shots, like it's.
But what I wanted to say is that education and knowledge is power, and we're not talking about access to like information because information is like literally out there everywhere. Use a smartphone and you have it.
So true, so true.
But if you're not able to interpret that information, again, the knowledge you need to, you know what I mean?
You mean? Like scholastic education?
Like, for example, if you don't understand what you're reading, then what's the point of that?
Oh, yep.
It's like with the feminist movement. If you don't understand what it stands for, what's the point of that? If you're going to go preaching again, like...
like if it's touching on some insecurities or something.
But not just insecurities. Like, I mean, like, if they... Because, like, I, for example, this is what I want to say.
Okay.
And you can tell me. If we have access to mental health and all of these things, but we still don't know how to action it in our everyday life, it's useless.
100%.
It's like you can read all the books you want,
but if you don't implement
but if you don't know how to action them, if you don't have a plan, it's like you didn't read any. Like, yes, great, you can focus, but you know what I mean?
Pretty much.
It's like there's so much information out there, but if people are not educated
on that path,
and they can't, because we're not just talking about self-awareness here or like self-actualization, because unfortunately people that have been just abused for so long are not even thinking about that. They are just like thinking about whether they're going to make it to the end of the day, you know? So if they don't know that there is better out there in the sense of like opportunities, safety and all of these, or they probably are aware of it, but they don't know how
that
to...
it's for them, to be honest, because if you're pushed in that corner for so long, you start believing that that's it. There's no way for you to have better in your life. There's no one that can help you, and this is just your lot in life, and you're stuck there. And that is like... That is, the bottom or est of the bottom places you can ever push a human being, to be honest. And so I think when, just to tie it all back together, when we forget these fundamentals and unfortunately get into conversations where people will be like, oh, and I think, again, I'll be like toxic femininity, which might not even be a thing. But I just look at it like that when women will be like, oh, nah, if he's not paying for me or if he's not, paying all the meals or whatever, then like that's like, I don't deserve that. I deserve better. He's just a shit man. Like, that's not what we're trying to say here.
Maybe you have internalized misogyny.
Or maybe you just have unrealistic expectations, because what feminism is and what asking for equality is not that.
Yeah.
You know, it's about being treated as a basic human, because that's what you are. You're 50% of the population.
You don't need to be a female to be a feminist, by the way.
Really
There's so many men that I know that are like female allies that identify themselves as feminists. Because
that's the beauty of it. It is equality for everyone.
Sohan said that's the beauty of it.
Oh,
equality.
Oh my gosh, and that's the beauty of it. It is essentially equality for everybody.
So yes, those are our thoughts about feminists, and this movement has gone backwards at some point instead of forward.
If you think we're remotely incorrect, or if you agree,
no, just
with
let us know your
saying.
thoughts. We're always right. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But we want this platform is like an opportunity for, it's like an open discussion. And you can argue thoughts and throw them at us. Is that right?
I guess. I don't know why we're getting thrown at.
Okay. You can share your thoughts and let us know what you think and what your interpretation of the feminist movement is, and when you reckon it's gone way out of proportion or like out of...
Yeah, or even if you don't think it has. You know, what are the conversations you're having or the people around you are having? We would be interested to know.
And we would also encourage you to answer the questions that we sort of like went through in this podcast episode. Because I feel like another thing and another very important question is like, do you actually stand for equality for all or just for certain in like groups? Is it because another thing that I want to mention because it's so funny. What made me think about this question was I remember that there was a lady and it was a comment that someone made recently to me, and it was like, yes, but like this lady who was like a Caucasian female who came from a family that was really wealthy was fighting for the feminist movement, or like she was fighting for equality for all. And this person was trying to make a comment about how she shouldn't even fight about these things because she comes from a privilege.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter if you come from privilege or not.
No, but it almost does, because I feel like sometimes if you come from privilege and you don't talk about these things, that's worse. You know, because you are in a position to have sometimes a stronger voice, or a voice that's heard because you enjoy a certain standing in society and with people, and maybe you have backing.
And I guess that's what I was trying to say. Like, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or your gender. This is a movement that we should all support. If you understand it, we should all support it.
Yeah, if you understand it, there's no reason to not back it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, like, people shouldn't be surprised if the person fighting for equal rights or just, you know, like, human rights. They shouldn't be surprised if the person is not part of a minority group. It's not the minority's problem. It's a societal problem. It's not just their problem. It's everyone's problem when we isolate them and not help them like thrive in their life.
Yeah, literally. Because like, how would they stop being a minority? Because the majority would treat them as the same as the majority. That's the fundamental way. That makes sense to me. I don't know if there's like some other magic.
So what do you guys think? Let us know, because sometimes I get surprised by everything that I hear and read.
Problems with tricky solutions. So if anyone has any thoughts, chime in.
We're open. We're open dance for you. Thoughts to dance on.
And if you made it to the end, thank you so much for listening to our little ramble.
If you have been here for like the past 40 minutes. We appreciate that, and we can't wait to hear your feedback and your thoughts.
And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night.
Till next afternoon.
Ciao.
Ciao.